Having gotten through voice cod normal form, there are normal forms higher than voice cod. We're going to look at these next. We're going to start with fourth normal form. We're not going to spend too much time on any normal form higher than fourth, but I will at least explain what those normal forms are in this video. These are the next three normal forms we're going to discuss: fourth normal form, fifth normal form, and sixth normal form, also called domain key normal form. Of these normal forms, the one that I'm most concerned about is fourth normal form, but as we'll see, if you design correctly and remember one design rule, your table will never not be in fourth normal form. Fifth and sixth are interesting normal forms. In practice, not used too much, so we're going to go through those fairly quickly. Fourth normal form has a very specific purpose. It protects your tables from multi-value dependencies. And they only show up when you have two multi-valued attributes or more on an entity type. So let's take a look at this ER diagram, this employee entity type. So here's employee, and as you can see, both the languages and the skills attributes are in double ovals. This means that an employee will have multiple languages and multiple skills. And they're in a double oval, meaning they're probably not big enough to be a full entity type. They probably just need the name of the language and the name of the skill. Fine. So one way to do this, which I would not recommend, would be over here on the left, where we have a table that has the employee IDs, the skills, and the languages. And it just treats them in one table called employee talents. I guess this is designed to save space or to save the number of tables. I'm not sure. But you can see that employee 1 knows Java, Python, and C++, also knows English and Japanese. So rather than having two tables and filling in all the information, it's all shoved into one called employee talents, and here we are. But this is not good because for a few reasons. Number one, you're going to have lots of nulls. Suppose, for example, that you had 40 skills and you only knew 2 languages. Then for that employee, there'd be 38 rows where the language is null. And remember, we don't like nulls too much in table design. The other issue is that these create the illusion of association. What do I mean by that? Well, here we have employee 1, we have Java, and on the same row we have English. That implies that Java and English are somehow related to one another because they're on the same row. Similarly, we have Python and Japanese. Having Python and Japanese in the same row implies there's a connection between them. Worst of all, if you tried to query for an employee who knew English and Python, you'd have to write the query in a very particular way. So fourth normal form is not good to violate. The good news is, though, if you follow the modeling rules and you see that you have these double ovals and you remember to put them in their own table, you will never fall victim to a table not in fourth normal form. And the way this should be developed is this following. There should be a table for skills and a table for languages. And notice this is cleaner, and this is in fourth normal form, the tables that are outlined in blue. There are some famous fourth normal form violators out there. Documentum is one of them. They built a document management system that stores the metadata about documents into a relational database. And the way they do this is the single valued attributes, like the name of the object, when it was created, etc., they live in one table with an object ID as a key. And in another table, they use one table for every single repeating value. So in this case, we see, for example, authors. A document can have more than one author, and a document can have more than one keyword. And they build these rows with a composite key of the object ID, or the document ID, and this thing called iPosition. But look, they have fourth normal form violations going on right here. This is not the best way to handle queries, but some systems have violated fourth normal form. Fifth normal form and sixth normal form are kind of catch-alls. Fifth normal form goes to war against any redundancies, as if there were any redundancies left. Fifth normal form rarely comes into play. In fact, one of the more common examples of a fifth normal form violator is this insurance model, insurance agents and the companies they work for. But man, oh man, you have to build a very complicated scenario to have fifth normal form apply. And this is one of them. The table on the right is not in fifth normal form only because of the business rules that we've highlighted on the left, and actually needs to be broken into 3 different tables. But as I said, if you don't go to fifth normal form, it's not the end of the world. In sixth normal form, you're normalizing by domain constraints. So fifth normal form was the last war against redundancies. Sixth normal form is the last war against null values. And the idea is that you have these long, skinny tables. So look at the person table on the upper right. We have Amber Robbins, she's a freshman from New Jersey, and Bill McCauley, a senior from Pennsylvania. And that table seems perfectly fine in most circumstances. But if you wanted to go to sixth normal form, you would actually break it into the 4 tables you see in teal. You'd have a table for the first names, a table for the last names, a table for the student grades, a table for the student states. Not only do I think this is somewhat ridiculous, but it's also going to increase your number of joins tremendously, and SQL is not meant, in my opinion, to go to this level of normalization. So the first option of sixth normal form is what I'm calling many tables, where it's a table per attribute. Option 1 is truly the only sixth normal form example here, but option 2 is a variation on the theme. Option 2, instead of having one table per every student attribute, builds one giant table, but notice it's still one of these skinny tables, but this table mixes all the fields together. So you would have student 1, first name Amber, last name Robbins, grade freshman, state New Jersey, and student number 2 for Bill McCauley. You can see that the way this is done is the field name, the attribute name, becomes actually a column, and then the values are associated with that. It's a bit like key value pairs for the primary key of the person table. I have seen a variation of this used for tables for applications that hold validation values. These are the legitimate values for the different attributes in an application. Of course, we wouldn't want to do things like have valid values for first names or last names, so those rows wouldn't appear. But then you could have the fields that had a list of values in this kind of a table, and then the allowable values would be in the second column. So grade could be freshman, grade could be senior, sophomore, etc. These are good, and they have an advantage over an enum. An enum could work the same way, as you know, but if you have a validation values table, you could expose that to the end users of your application. Then they could go in and, at their discretion, add another row in the table. For example, if they wanted to have a grade for a super senior, they could invent a new grade and put in a new valid value. And then finally, there is option 3, which is really the only way that I would support sixth normal form in general. It's called partial sixth normal form. And it says, leave your tables as they are in fifth normal form or earlier, and don't try to give you a table per attribute, but maybe the nullable attributes, maybe the attributes that don't always have a value. Maybe those could be separated into their own table. So you may want to consider that if you have some rare attributes that are bogging down your person table, and you want to have those in a separate table for the few rows, or the few persons that have that attribute. But again, I'm not that wild about partial sixth normal form either. This again was provided to you just for the sense of completeness. So these, my friends, are the normal forms. Hope you enjoy them, understand the principles behind them, know how to apply them, and know when not to apply them.